So I'm not happy about week one. But anyway, we'll move on from that. It's a fresh new week, guys. We're excited to be here today, and we're excited to talk about some of the interesting things that are happening on our planet. Because let me tell you, it's 2020, and there's a hell of a lot of things happening on our planet today that is just mind boggling. So, Sean, what do you think? Do you want to start up this show here and get us going with some weather things?
Yeah, so I think we're going to first start. Mike has up the website for us here, and we previewed this last week. But again, just want to go over a few tools. Mike, I think it's good if we start with our weather table for the week.
Yeah, let's bring it
So
up.
if you scroll down the website, you'll see that that's essentially a summary of what to expect this week as far as weather and if there's any fantasy impacts. And right now, it is a quiet week, and we'll talk actually more about why it's going to be a quiet week in a bit. But then we also have some additional tools for you to take a look at. We have weather maps, and we previewed these yesterday. I want to quickly take a look at these because one cool feature about these maps, if and again, you can go on our website and take a look at these in depth as much as you'd like, but you notice that there are circles with X's, and the color in those circles, well, first off, those circles indicate stadiums, but then they also give us an impact or an idea as if there's going to be an impact due to weather.
Right.
So this is a really cool tool if you're like, hey, I want to look ahead. Is there going to be weather for a Monday night game or for a Sunday night game? You could do this yourself. And we have precipitation. So, hey, is it going to rain? And we also have a wind map as well. And those are two of the big variables that we look at when it comes to is weather going to have an influence on fantasy football? Is how much rain are we getting and how windy is it going to be? Those are the two. And then the other one being temperature as well.
Yeah, so
Mike, you have anything to add
yeah,
here?
I just want to say that for the stadiums that have circles with a little dot in them, those are the stadiums that are essentially have an option or have a dome to cover up the field. So we,
Mm.
typically when there's bad weather, we don't have to worry about those locations. That's why I'm just putting them on there to show you where those locations are. And these stadiums will update each week the locations of them depending on if there's a home game there. And I think the last thing I want to mention is that if you see the green X with a circle, that's a no impact day. If you see like an orange shading, orange color there, it's a caution, meaning there's some weather going on. There may or may not be impacts. It's something that we're keeping an eye on. And then if you see the red X, that's where there's some extreme impacts coming, and we feel at least the forecast model that we're looking at is predicting some potential significant impacts. So that's the last thing I think is important from these guys here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Looking at those colors for game day for the times of the games is really, really important. So if you're a person that's like, well, I just kind of want to take a look at what games are being impacted and what's the weather going to be. Maybe you're not into the map thing. We also have a blog that we update every week. Mike, do you want to kind of navigate to that blog, the weather summary and impacts blog,
Yes, sir.
and we could take a quick look at that. So under the weather or the fantasy weather impact blog is the first option here. If you click on that, I provide and Mike and I provide a summary of what the weather in general is looking like for that week, just over the U.S. And then we highlight some games that we potentially need to monitor or games that we're confident will have an impact. And this will kind of be updated throughout the week. And right now, the only game, and this is kind of swaying because this is a impact game due to wind, and so our models are kind of going back and forth as to how much of an impact this may have. But the only potential for an impact is at Tampa Bay. So the Panthers are at the Bucks. Temperature is going to be in the low 80s. No precipitation, but the one thing that we are monitoring is winds that can maybe potentially get up to 20 miles an hour plus, but we're looking at more consistent winds around 10 to 15 miles an hour. Now that's on the lower end, so we don't expect there to be any major player impacts at this point in time. But we will update this throughout the weekend and especially Sunday if anything changes.
Yeah, so it sounds like pretty mild week in weather for
Yeah,
NFL, and we typically expect this right early on in the season. We haven't really gotten to that fall pattern yet. We get those big storms.
exactly. And I mean, yeah, typically as we transition into fall, that's when we see the storm tracks navigate a little bit further south. And that's where we have, a lot of bigger events as we go into fall. But right now, typically, unless it's a tropical storm or convection, so that means thunderstorms or maybe some wind, we usually don't see a lot of impacts of this early on in the season.